Welcome everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to defeat the Disc Priest Mage Tower event, Feltotem Fall. I'm calling this guide the easy mode guide because what I'm about to show you is much easier to pull off compared to many of the other online guides I've seen. I'm sure most of you are here because you're frustrated with wiping over and over, so I'm going to jump right into how this works, and I'll cover all the gearing and weak auras I made for this fight at the end of the video. Timestamps are in the description below. This easy mode strategy centers around two key points. First, you're going to kill Tugar and Jormog at the same time to avoid ever having to deal with any of the enrage mechanics. And second, by alternating between Psychic Scream and Mindbender with Fade, you will completely negate almost every Fel Burst cast. The combination of these two things removes any sort of DPS check, so no need to go farm those triple socketed pieces of gear or burn thousands of gold in consumables. Obviously, if you want to use any of those things, it does make the encounter easier, but they're not required. For the purposes of this guide, I'll be referring to Phase 1 as the phase where Jormog is active near the water, and Phase 2 as the phase where the ads spawn and Jormog is burrowed and moving around. You want to always Psychic Scream during Phase 1, and always use Mindbender and Fade during Phase 2 during Tugar's Earthquake cast. Let's take a look at how this works. At the start of the fight, you're going to be exclusively DPSing Tugar since Jormog takes 90% reduced damage, 10% for each stack of Fel hardened scales. Start with your damage opener and move close to Jormog to set up for the fear. As soon as Tugar starts casting his Fel Burst, fear both mobs and continue to DPS Tugar. It's not necessary to get both mobs in the fear, but it will help you avoid some Sonic Scream casts. Later on in the fight, once Jormog gets to 3 stacks or less, you'll want to mostly ignore Tugar during Phase 1 and focus all of your attention on DPSing Jormog, since this is the only phase you can damage him, and you'll have to catch up on his health since Tugar will already be much lower. Toward the end of the fight, you'll probably have to completely stop damaging Tugar to catch up on Jormog. I'd recommend using any 2-minute cooldowns like Power Infusion or Damage Trinkets on Jormog once he has 3 stacks or less. When Jormog burrows, you enter Phase 2. If Tugar casts his Fel Burst before channeling Earthquake, then he's a little desynchronized and you might have to use a defensive. But in general, he'll start casting Earthquake. When he's close to finishing his Earthquake cast Mindbender, and once Mindbender is active, cast Fade before he finishes his Earthquake channel. About 95% of the time, this will cause him to cast his Fel Burst onto your Mindbender, so you can once again completely avoid any damage. If you like how my nameplates show his cast target, I'll have a link in the description below to 2 weak auras that make this happen. If you get unlucky with the spell queue and need to use a defensive, I'd recommend committing them in the following order. If you're less than 3 or 4 minutes into the encounter, you can probably live just fine from full health with the 10% damage reduction from Masochism, so you just need to Shadow Man yourself right before the cast hits. If you can sneak a Power Word Shield in, that helps too. If it's 4 to 7 minutes into the encounter, committing a Rapture Shield on top of Masochism is probably a good idea. And after the 7-minute mark, I'd commit a Barrier or Pain Suppression. Since you're avoiding almost all the casts using this easy mode strategy, you should have more than enough defensives available if you need them. On my kill, at the very end of the fight, the Mindbender trick didn't work for some reason and I had all my defensives available. During Phase 2, it is critical that you immediately look at the path of Jormog and line yourself up so when he peaks for the first time, 2 of the rocks are between your position and his position. This is because when he peaks, he will burrow and charge toward your position and lose 1 of his 9 damage reduction stacks for each rock he hits. You only get 2 chances per Phase 2 to line up his charge, and it's very difficult to line up 2 rocks with his second charge, making it very important that you get 2 rocks with his first charge. The damage you do during Phase 2 is secondary to your main 2 objectives of removing Jormog's stacks and successfully executing the Mindbender taunt to prevent taking damage from Fel Burst. To recap, your 2 objectives for Phase 1 are to land your Psychic Scream on Tugar's Fel Burst and to pump as much boss damage as you can into Jormog once he's at 3 stacks or less. Your 2 main objectives for Phase 2 are to land your Mindbender Fade combo during Earthquake to avoid the Fel Burst damage, and to line yourself up to remove 3 stacks of Fel hardened scales from Jormog. If you miss a few stacks, that's fine, but you ideally want to remove 3 stacks per phase. That's the general strategy, but there are a few other mechanics you'll need to be aware of. You'll periodically see totems spawn. These will stun you if you let their cast go off, so hit them with a quick Shadow Word Pain to avoid being stunned. The swirlies on the ground are cast by the Bile Spitter ads, so make sure you're committing some DPS to kill them in a reasonable amount of time. I just hit each one with a Purge the Wicked, but Divine Star works great here, as does Mind Seer. You'll also see other ground swirlies that form an X pattern, which you'll have to constantly avoid. There's also a dot that does a lot of damage, so dispel that as soon as you see it. In terms of gear, remember that everything scales down to item level 50. so picking up some lower item level gear with better stats will help you. Your gearing priority should be as follows. First, try to drop as much mastery as you can, ideally getting it to 0. Even a green item off the auction house without mastery will beat out a BIS 259 Mythic Sylvanas piece with mastery. Second, try to get as many sockets as you can. If you have any old BFA or Legion gear in your bank with sockets, grab them. Finally, pick up any items that were considered over budget for their item level. The Cyclotronic Punch cards, Highborn Compendium of Storms, Incandescent Sliver, and Psyche Shredder are a few examples. These are by no means mandatory. Don't bother farming them, but just find the best options with what you've got. The beauty of this strategy is it doesn't require great gear, just a little patience. Finally, I made a small weak aura pack that shows some of the spells being cast and plays some sounds. Link in the description below if you want to check that out. If you found this guide helpful, consider giving this video a like and subscribing to my channel. If you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to use the comments section below or hit me up in Discord or while I'm streaming on Twitch. As always, good luck, and I'll see you next time.